Macau Chief Executive Ho Yat-seng says he won't participate in the upcoming CE election. Hong Kong's Olympic team takes part in a bus parade to greet the public. And in the U.S., Barack Obama and his wife call on the nation to embrace Kamala Harris at the Democratic National Convention. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Macau's Chief Executive Ho Yat-seng has announced that he will not participate in the enclave's 6th chief executive election in October. The 67-year-old said he made his decision because his health had not fully recovered. Timothy Lee has our top story.
In a statement released this afternoon, Macau's chief executive Ho Yat-seng emphasized his deep feelings for Macau and that he has given his all for the city. The Macau CE said he decided not to participate in the upcoming chief executive election after taking into consideration the long-term development and well-being of the city. This as he stressed he will lend his full support to his successor, adding that the enclave's government will conduct its administrative functions in accordance with the law. Ho thanked the central government and various sectors in Macau for their support over the past 5 years. Ho initially took a 13-day leave on the 21st of June, but later twice extended his leave that lasted until the 29th of last month. When he attended a celebratory event with the People's Liberation Army garrison of Macau on the 1st of this month, Ho said he had undergone body checks and necessary treatment during his time off work. He noted he was in good health at the time. Macau's next CE election is set to take place on the 13th of October. Born in Macau in 1957, Ho took over his family's business after graduating from university and invested in a factory on the mainland. In 2009, he became a member of the enclave's Legislative Assembly and was elected as vice president. In 2014, he became the 5th president of the lawmaking body before resigning in July 2019 to participate in that year's chief executive election. He was the sole candidate at the time. Since 2000, Ho has also been a member of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress. Commenting on Ho's decision, veteran political commentator Lau Siu-kai said Macau's situation is stable, and any political elite taking the top job there will be able to handle the economic and livelihood issues. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The city's delegation to the Paris 2024 Olympics took part in a bus parade and greeted members of the public today. This after local athletes won gold medals in fencing, bronze medals in swimming, and ranked highly in other sports, such as taekwondo, table tennis, and badminton. Chief Executive John Lee also hosted a ceremony to celebrate their success today. Mimo Singai reports.
The parade began at the Hong Kong Sports Institute in Sha Tin, where athletes boarded the open-top double-deckers. Slogans saying "Welcome home, we have great pride in you" were placed on the buses. Among the athletes who took part in the bus parade were Olympic fencing gold medalist Vivian Kong, swimming bronze medalist Chiffon Ho-hee, and the table tennis pair Du Hoi Kam and Wang Zhongting. Fencing gold medalist Zhang Ka-lon is not in Hong Kong today. The first stop of the parade was the Tai Wai MTR station. The gloomy and wet weather did not dampen the excitement of residents who came to hail the athletes. It was crowded outside the station, and people were ready to take pictures of the Hong Kong team with their phones. This man was emotional when he talked about the athletes' achievements. I thank them wholeheartedly, especially Chiffon Ho-hee, who said she was born and raised in Hong Kong. I was touched, he said. Athletes stood up and waved their flags to greet members of the public. The next stop of the bus parade, Tsim Sha Tsui, where the athletes received a warm welcome. Chiffon Ho-hee, hello, she screamed. These two girls said they support Vivian Kong and Zhang Ka-lon.
What do you like about her? Because she wins, they're happy.
Some residents said they traveled far to meet the athletes. The parade buses hung around in Tsim Sha Tsui for about 2 to 3 minutes. The buses then proceeded to Hong Kong Island, passed by the Central Star Ferry Pier. And athletes got off at the Legislative Council building. They were greeted by lawmakers. An interactive session between the athletes and the public was arranged at Tan Ma Park. Some asked to take photos with Ho He, while others wanted an autograph of Wang Zhongting. In the afternoon, a welcoming ceremony for Team Hong Kong was held at the central government offices. Chief Executive John Lee said all members of the team had delivered outstanding performances. Lee said his administration had been in touch with sports organizations, including the Hong Kong Sports Institute, to improve the individual athletes support scheme. He added that HKSI is reviewing the system of direct financial support to athletes and will complete the process before early next year. News 9, TVB News.
The Hong Kong Housing Society has announced a 10% rent hike starting in October with a 3-month waiver. This as the Housing Society conducts a public housing rent review every 2 years. The rent adjustment is set to affect tenants of 20 public housing estates, with the average household paying an additional $230 a month. Well-off households will need to pay an additional $640. The Housing Society will offer rent assistance to eligible tenants facing temporary financial challenges, reducing their rent by 25 to 50%. Former U.S. President Barack Obama and his wife, Michelle Obama, have delivered a 1-2 punch at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, urging voters to back Kamala Harris in her bid against Republican Donald Trump. Democrats are leaning on Republican voices to persuade conservative voters to abandon Trump. Tracy Furness has more.
Keynote speaker on the second night of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, Barack Obama, cautioned Democrats that even though the torch has been passed to Kamala Harris, the work for Democrats is not yet done.
We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse. America's ready for a new chapter. America's ready for a better story. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris.
And more jibes as Michelle Obama referenced in her speech Trump's comments on immigrants taking black jobs from Americans.
I want to know who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs.
The governor of Illinois, who was instrumental in bringing the Democratic Convention to Chicago, also slammed the 45th president of the United States in his speech.
Donald Trump thinks that we should trust him on the economy because he claims to be very rich. But take it from an actual billionaire. Trump is rich in only one thing: stupidity.
But it was Stephanie Grisham, Trump's former White House press secretary, who could be more damaging to the former president.
I wasn't just a Trump supporter. I was a true believer. I was one of his closest advisors. The Trump family became my family. I spent Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's all at Mar-a-Lago. I saw him when the cameras were off. Behind closed doors, Trump mocks his supporters. He calls them basement dwellers.
South Carolina delegate Freddie Houston Sr. hopes that former President Barack Obama will inspire and motivate uncommitted voters to support Harris.
I'm hoping that he's going to do what he did for his election for Kamala, is to inspire and motivate folks that have not committed themselves yet to support her, because we definitely got to get her elected this year.
Outside the convention center, pro-Palestinian protesters descended on the streets of Chicago for a second night. Protesters held placards in support of the Palestinian cause and chanted slogans demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
U.S. President Joe Biden reportedly greenlit a classified nuclear strategy earlier this year, which sharpened the focus on China. A White House spokesman said on Tuesday the strategy is not a response to any single entity, country, or threat. Earlier, the New York Times reported that Biden approved the revised nuclear strategic plan in March to address China's growing atomic arsenal and its potential collaboration with Russia and other countries. This as U.S. intelligence estimates suggest China may increase the size of its warheads from 500 to 1,000 by 2030. The nuclear weapons employment planning guidance is typically updated every 4 years or so. An unclassified notification to Congress of the revision is expected to be sent before Biden leaves office in January next year. Meanwhile, the Chinese Ministry of Defense has urged Washington to discard the Cold War mentality. Beijing stressed it is committed to a policy of no first use of nuclear weapons, and it always keeps its nuclear strength at minimum level required by national security. Imports of Chinese electric vehicles into the EU will face hefty countervailing duties of up to 36.3% under a revised draft put forward by the European Commission. Both the Ministry of Commerce and the Chinese Auto Association slammed the EU draft on tariffs. Leading car maker BYD's executive says the company now seeks to diversify its products to offset the impact. Danny Zhou has the story.
The final findings of EU's high-profile anti-subsidy probe into Chinese electric vehicles came out on Tuesday. The newly revised tariff rates on Chinese EV imports ranged from 9 to 36.3%. That's down from the initial 17.4 to 38.1% proposed in June. In addition to the regular 10% import tariff, BYD will get an individual duty of 17%, Geely 19.3%, and SAIC Group 36.3%. In particular, Tesla is to get a significantly lower tariff of 9% on its China-built cars, as Brussels concluded that it received fewer subsidies from the Chinese government. Other firms will be subject to a tariff of 21.3%, while non-cooperating firms will face the high end of 36.3%. The Commission said the new rates were part of the ongoing investigation and are subject to change. The China Association of Automobile Manufacturers voiced strong opposition. It said the restriction has undermined the confidence of Chinese enterprises operating in and investing in Europe, and it will be a blow to EU's automotive industry, job market, and green development as well. The Ministry of Commerce had called for WTO consultations with the EU over the punitive tariffs, alleging that they have violated the agreements on subsidies and countervailing measures. The manufacturers at the same time are exploring alternative ways to maintain sales growth. Original manager of BYD said the company will strive to alleviate the burden of the tariff impact by diversifying its products. BYD has already started selling plug-in hybrids in Europe, as they're not subject to those duties. He also noted new EV manufacturing bases will be built in Southeast Asia and Europe. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
Still ahead, Antony Blinken ends his Mideast visit without a ceasefire deal. HKU and Chinese University become local trial institutions in a national training program for primary and secondary school teachers. And new vending machines offering treats at the Wan Chai Harborfront. Welcome back. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's Middle East diplomacy tour finished with no end to the fighting in Gaza. Blinken struck a tentative tone when he said he wanted a peace deal completed in the coming days. In the last 24 hours, Israel has hit Hamas with attacks, while the militant group that runs the Gaza Strip has not agreed to the latest bridging proposals. David Garrett reports.
This is not a ceasefire. The talk was of a final diplomatic push to stop the war. But injured Gazans are brought to this hospital through the night with hope for peace fading. Officials said an Israeli strike hit a busy street. 7 dead here, with medics saying more than 50 were killed in Gaza in one day. More bloodshed as the US Secretary of State's diplomacy tour ends. Antony Blinken's final stop, Qatar. The nation is mediating alongside the US and Egypt. Blinken had come from Egypt, having also been to Israel, where he said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had agreed to bridge gaps and find a settlement. Before Blinken had sat down with Qatar's ruler, Hamas had called the latest proposal a reversal of what it had previously agreed to, accusing the US of caving to new conditions from Israel. Preparing to depart, Blinken sounding less than confident as he asked for flexibility.
We're engaged every single day with Israel, and our Qatari and Egyptian partners are engaged with Hamas. And over the coming days, we are going to do everything possible to, one, get Hamas on board with the bridging proposal, and then to make sure that both parties work on and agree to necessary details of implementation that would allow everything to go forward.
Blinken said his country does not accept a long-term Israeli occupation of Gaza, but Netanyahu told hostage families that he is uncertain a deal will be reached. Israel's Prime Minister was reported to have said he would not relinquish control of 2 corridors in the Gaza Strip, a key demand of Hamas. In Tel Aviv, the IDF went into details and showed pictures of how they recovered 6 dead hostages in Khan Yunis. Acting on intelligence, they raided an underground tunnel. Field operations continue with troops turning over every stone. Outside, these protesters have stopped listening to their military.
We got the news of 6 more hostages that were brought back in body bags. The longer they're there, the more body bags we get. We want to bring our hostages home alive as soon as possible. And this is why we're here every day between 7 and 9 p.m.
But the conflict continues. Displaced Palestinians squashed together in overcrowded living areas are dealing with new evacuation orders. This child dreaming that one day soon he will be able to sleep in peace. David Garrett, TVB News.
The University of Hong Kong and the Chinese University of Hong Kong have become the first 2 local trial institutions included in the mainland's national training program for primary and secondary school teachers. This program allows mainland graduates to teach in Hong Kong schools. Mim Mosingai reports.
The Ministry of Education announced the second batch of trial universities for the National Training Program for Primary and Secondary School Teachers. HKU and CUHK are 2 of the 13 listed institutions. The program hopes to train outstanding science teachers in primary and secondary schools. It targets students who have earned an undergraduate degree or who are enrolled in a postgraduate degree in STEM subjects. The program aims to entice them to study a master's or doctoral degree in education or science. Students who did not study education but fulfill the standards of gaining that master's degree can also receive the education qualification. The mainland's Ministry of Education hopes more exchanges can be generated between Hong Kong and mainland master's students. The ministry also supports the facilitation of mainland students enrolled in the scheme to teach in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's Education Bureau said the first group of students from the program will enroll in the 2025-26 academic year. Minus 9, TVB News.
Hong Kong Polytechnic University has won 9 awards at this year's Silicon Valley International Inventions Festival. The institution received prizes for inventions such as a smart brace that treats scoliosis, an irregular curve of the spine. Timothy Lee tells us more.
A research team from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, or PolyU, has developed a nighttime smart brace for those suffering from adolescent idiopathic scoliosis, the most common form of scoliosis seen in teenagers. Scoliosis is a condition that involves an irregular curve of the spine. Unlike traditional braces made from plastic, this brace is made from textiles and is installed with a sensor, which can monitor the pressure between the brace and the body as you are wearing it. It could adjust or readjust the pressure of the smart padding within the brace when its user is sleeping. Professor Joanne Yip, Associate Dean of Polyu's School of Fashion and Textiles, said they could determine where to add more pressure in the brace according to the user's X-ray images. She stressed that the brace is especially effective if worn for long periods of time. The research team noted the brace could be available to the public at the end of next year at the earliest, at the cost of around $3,000. Besides the scoliosis treating brace, the university won 8 other awards at the Silicon Valley International Inventions Festival in the U.S. They include awards for a 181 micrometer thick, wireless breathable cardiac electronic skin that could be used for the early detection of cardiovascular diseases. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The Wan Chai Harborfront has introduced vending machines offering ice cream, popcorn, and other treats for the first time. The 6 machines located on Hung Hing Road include milk, soda, and cheese-flavored ice cream. Cotton candy, popcorn, as well as coffee are also available on the spot. The items cost between $30 and $35. Digital payment is accepted, and the octopus option will be available in the 4th quarter of the year. Residents can purchase the treats between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. during the trial period before they eventually become operational 24/7. The government said similar facilities will be available at the Kwun Tong and Cha Kuo Ling harborfronts at the end of the year. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.